Call to order the City Council work session for CB's Grand Forks for April 25th. It is now 5 o'clock. Would City Clerk please call roll?
Mayor Steve Gander.
Here.
Council President Mark Olstead.
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riepel.
Here.
Council Members Clarence Vetter.
Here.
Ben Pukshavinsky.
Here.
Dale Helms.
Here.
Brian Larson.
Here.
Karen Peterson. Here.
Does term quorum number 1, discussion and outdoor rink project. Reid, Huttunen.
All right, thank you, Mr. President, council members. Last Wednesday evening, the Blue Line Club held a meeting, and a few of their board members are here to be able to speak on it as well. But a really good discussion about the outdoor rink proposal at their meeting. And in general, their board is excited about it. They made a motion at the meeting that if the city would commit $100,000 to the project, that price was mentioned at our last work session a few weeks ago, just as a starting place. If the city would give $100,000 to the project, the Blue Line Club would fund the project to completion with the full concrete floor project scope, up to a total project cost of $350,000. And our current estimate, we recognize it's not complete and final. There's still a few loose ends that we need to tie up, but our current estimate I had at just about $268,000. So there's a little wiggle room still there for some of those unknowns that will inevitably probably grow the total project cost. So with that, if Mike or anybody from the club has anything they'd like to share, and then any questions.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike Colstow. So yeah, we did meet last Wednesday, and like Reid said, we unanimously, would like to go forward with this, hopefully we can get the city to help out on this, like we asked a few weeks ago on this project. We're very excited for it. I mean, we think the youth of the community would extremely be pleased, I think, and happy to have something like this amenity. This, not that they hadn't had one, but this is a very, I think, an enhanced amenity to add to what is already existing in the community. So if you'd got any questions or anything on that matter.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody else have anything to add, Mr. Allen?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is there, I mean, I know you went from 275 to not exceed to 350, but are we, what happens when you get to that point and all of a sudden now you want to do more? It's going to, for some reason, I just see this project just getting way out of hand. I don't know why, but I do. And I think it's, because I know, you're talking about lights and everything else, and it just all costs money. So I guess at what point in the game are you going to say no more? You know what I mean? So.
Sure. I mean, we did discuss that, in the meeting, and that's why we went with the 350. I mean, we talked about a lot of other numbers. But we had to have some sort of a number, I guess, to kind of cap it out, and where the board would, unanimously agreed to at that point. Because we know, yeah, projects like this, the 270 or whatever was probably not going to be that way. We still want to work as far as, as finding in-kind donations, things like that, to help out, to help lower that initial cost too, as far as, contractor help and things like that. We'll be soliciting some of that to help as well, to help curb costs. And we've had a few of them already reach out to us as well already to help out with some of this, whether it's dirt, some of the dirt work and things like that. So, but should that road get to there, yeah, we definitely wouldn't. We're not going to pull the pin on the whole thing and things like that. We're not totally flush with cash, but we have some means anyways, and we have spoke to some lenders about financing part of it as well, instead of dumping all our cash up front type thing. So, and then they've been receptive. They'd be willing to work with us as far as a loan or something like that need be too. So.
The Blue Line Club has done a lot of good in East Grand Forks. There's no doubt about that. Everybody knows that. I don't think anybody can argue that point. But the thing that I'm hearing on the street is, how many ice rinks do we need in East Grand Forks? And the other thing I'm hearing is, now we'll have 3 of them on the point. We'll have none in the middle of town, and we'll have 1 on the north end. So how is that kind of being equal to the city to, I mean, people on the north end have to drive a long ways to go skate. So, by the fact of closing Stell's Park, although he had numbers and it was all people that drive there, I understand that, but that's still a lot of the people that used, the only rink they used was that one. So that's my concern I have, is closing one down and putting a third one on the point, and, you know, and along with, like I said, the other people I've talked to in the city, just doesn't feel that we should dump any more money into the ice arenas, to the hockey program. If they want to do it, they can pay. So I'm just going by what I'm hearing on the street, the way I hear it.
Joe, do you have something, sir?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, this isn't another ice arena. This is an outdoor rink. So I think you're talking about a totally different type of situation here. It's not an arena. We're not adding an arena. We're adding an outdoor rink. There used to be an outdoor rink at the point down at Folsom Park. Obviously, after the flood, that got eliminated. You know, the last 2 years, we haven't had an outdoor rink, period. So to add one on the point where we have significant population, as well as a lot of hockey players and anybody that wants to use the rink, I don't think that's asking too much of the city. Stouts Park, as Reid has pointed out, gets used by older individuals who can drive to the point or to Nash Park. I think our biggest concern is, number one, we got to have our outdoor rinks open, right? Number two, we have an opportunity here to utilize boards that were given to us and provide a new rink, outdoor rink, on the south end of town. So it's not adding a rink that, as we talked at last council meeting, we're going to hold practices, right? This is for everybody. So I don't see it as adding another arena.
That's the other concern I've heard out there too, is the fact that I know you're sitting here saying that it's not going to be, you're not going to hold practices and stuff there, but a lot of people feel that it's going to turn into that because of the way it's being built and whatever. So, and that is a concern. I mean,
You know, the reason it's being built this way is because the boards were given to us.
right?
Okay, so that's the main reason why it's being built this way, right? So without these boards, we'd still talked previously about trying to get an outdoor rink into the south end. We brought that up with Reid early on in the year. Maybe it'd be August, September. So maybe we use just wood boards, but at this point we got boards given to us. So regardless of the boards or wood boards, we were still going to try to put a rink next to the Blue Line Club, an outdoor rink. And one of the best things about hockey in this community is we have 3 rinks. We don't need an outdoor rink to have practice. We don't need the ice. We have the ice. So this rink, will there be an outdoor practice maybe every once in a while for fun, for kids? Possibly, probably. But we don't need to schedule practices outside to get to our number of practices we want to have per week. It's not going to happen.
Want to add something? No. Reid, did you have something, sir? Karen?
A question in regards to the process as a whole. Is there a process in place to prioritize projects? Right. My concern is that if we give $100,000 to the Blue Line Club, is the baseball club going to come and ask for $100,000? Are the figure skaters going to come and ask for $100,000? Those types of things. And so I guess my main question is there a process of how we prioritize this stuff? Right? I get that we got the boards donated to us. It's fabulous. It's wonderful. But is this a want to versus a have to? And how do we prioritize these types of things? And I guess in regards to the project that's being put forward, how does that impact or how does that play into the building committee? Right? Does that work within the plans for the building committee? Does that cause problems? I have questions in regards to that too.
know if you want to address that, Reid, or not.
Well, yeah, thank you. Ms. Peterson, I think they're very valid. They're great questions. I don't know that I have great answers for a lot of them. Just thinking, the questions that you asked, I think, are the very similar, if not the exact questions that I asked when the idea came up. I'll be honest, when the Blue Line Club came forward and said they wanted to commit this kind of money to a project, I told Judd we have a lot better ways to spend the money. We have a lot of needs in our arenas. I don't have an answer for like how we prioritize these things when our Park and Rec department goes through its annual budget process. Like all other departments in the city, we look at the needs we have in our existing facilities and place them in our capital improvement plan with a priority of what year we think each of them needs to happen. And then there's a whole nother list, like the arena projects that are unfunded that we know we need to get done that we don't have the money to do. And we submit them through the city's budget process. Now, that said, it seems like inevitably every year there is a public interest project that comes forward like this one, like the basketball court at Danmore Park. Just a couple to name, the pickleball project that happened a couple of years ago. Those are all things that happen in a quick time frame. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months that those ideas come forward and they start to take on a life of their own and develop. And here we are with an idea in front of us, and we're trying to figure out if the city has money to support it and where we're going to fund it at. And I think to try to bring it back to the outdoor rink, my thought process with it is those are all decisions that the city council needs to be informed of, and these discussions need to happen at this level to determine for a non-budgeted project like this how it's going to be funded, if it's going to be funded at all. And oftentimes they seem to build priority because there is a significant public interest in the project. And I would say pickleball had that case. Pickleball was a new sport that was growing gangbusters, and we had numerous people coming in and asking for this project to take on a higher priority level. We looked at it and said, it's not in our budget for the next 3 years, and there's no wiggle room to add anything to our budget the next 3 years. Okay, we have these Ultra funds. Let's talk about how to use them. That's a great project. It's been a very successful project for the community, even though it wasn't part of our 5-year capital improvement plan. It got added in short notice. The Danmore Park project for the basketball court was very similar. It got added in outside of an annual budget process on short notice because it was important to the community and people came to the meetings asking for it to be supported. I guess I feel like this is the same, not saying one way or another whether it needs to happen, has to happen. I'm just saying I think that's the process that was followed is similar to that. What it means for the building committee and the master plan for Park and Rec, I think this my view of it, I think it fits. I think it can be made to fit within the way those facilities are planned. There isn't a construction project planned on that side of those buildings as improvements are made. Where we would need to ask ourselves if it fits more appropriately is if it makes sense to use the money in this way. And I won't give an answer to that. That's for you to, as a city council, to determine, I feel.
Judd?
Yeah, one thing to remember too, that, 50 to 60,000 of the money spent is going to go inside that Blue Line Club for capital improvements. The benches, which need drastic work and rehab, as well as the rubber flooring that I believe was given to us, when the Blue Line Club was built, and it was from the BEAT plan. So, keep in mind that if the city were to put in $100,000 towards this project, a good portion of that is going to the inside of the Blue Line Club rink. That needs to get done, regardless. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year if we don't approve something like this, but it is something that should be on the list of capital improvements for that rink, because we need to get, we use that rink a lot more than we planned for games, and those bench areas need the work.
Mayor?
Reid, would you please, for us, one more time, just talk through the funding scenarios for us to come up with 100,000? I know we did this the other meeting, but would you kind of detail again the source of those funds, how we would come up with 100,000?
Yeah, the idea that was discussed at the last meeting is, and I think I have this right, Mr. Olsted and I talked about this, but talked about if the city would come up with $100,000, that 50,000 of it could come from the city's building maintenance fund, and the other 50,000 could come from what's available of our Ultra partnership dollars. So that's where the total of 100,000 would come from. There is more than that available in the Ultra partnership dollars. I think our existing balance there is like 146,000 roughly. I think the idea of using some building maintenance dollars came from because, to Judd's point he just made, there are improvements that would happen in the Blue Line Arena itself. Now, again, it's important to note, in our 2023 capital improvement plan, there isn't $50,000 set aside for this project in that fund. And that's, there's a 5-year plan placed out for that. So if we were going to use those funds, we would need to make sure that it's there and accounted for with the other projects that are already planned out of it.
If I could see maybe from Carla and Nancy on the building maintenance fund, what that might look like, to your point of prioritizing, what would have to drop down a bit to make this fit in there. I'd like to see this go, and the reason why is very often when something is driven by our people, it works. It succeeds, it gets used, versus something that comes from, City Hall driven, it'll look great and it may or may not get used. But when it comes bottom up from the people that'll use it, it will get used. It'll be done well and it will get used. And that's what we want. We want amenities that are done well, that meet the needs of our people, that actually get used. I believe this would be one of those.
I think one of the things too is if, let's say that we have the Ultra funds, if we just take it out of there and not out of the building maintenance fund is one way we can do it also. And if we have to do that process, that's one way to look at it. And I echo the comments of the mayor too, is, if it's citizen driven, like Judd said also, we used to have a rink down the south end. We don't have it anymore. I get the concern of Stouse being closed. But I appreciate, the Blue Line Club stepping up and committing to this, and the citizens committing to this project. I think that speaks volumes for that group. And I think it will get used, and hopefully it gets used by everyone, no matter what it is. And I think we're going to see summertime activity in there, whether it be roller hockey or whatever it may be. I think it'll get used. So, Mr. Helms, you had something to add? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I seem to be the only guy on the other side of the fence on this, and I'm thinking, I'm sitting here next to Mr. Vetter, and he's on a committee trying to figure out how we're going to cut costs and do whatever, and keep this city so we can operate. That's the other concern I have, is ongoing maintenance, because there's going to be some, and the city rightfully can't afford to keep on doing maintenance on them like that. If we keep adding to things that we maybe is not really priority, we got better things to do. And I think Reid even mentioned that you might have to hire another guy. Correctly? Was that mentioned? And so that's just more money down the road again. That when we're sitting here, we got a big task ahead of us to figure out where we're going to cut and what we're going to cut, and then we sit here and we talk about possibly adding more. So that's the other point that I have. That's.
Reid, do you want to adjust that, please?
Yep, I do. Thank you, Mr. Helms. The idea of adding another employee wouldn't be the case in this situation, and the reason for that is because I'm recommending we close Stouse Park. And that's truly, when it comes down to it, the reason that I'm saying that Stouse Park would need to be considered to be closed because we can't, in my view, take on a third outdoor rink. So any operations costs that would typically in history have been at Stellace Park essentially would be transferred to this rink instead. So our total operations between Nash Park and this new outdoor rink realistically should be the same as they would have been if it was Stellace Park and Nash Park, is the way that I look at it. So that's the reason that I'm recommending that Stellace Park would be closed, is simply to control what our annual operation costs of outdoor rinks would be.
Yeah, I understand that, but I still think that Stellace Park, the way that was operated, wasn't much there. Wasn't much at Stellace Park. There were some boards and some ice. You know, we're going to be doing a whole lot more here now. We're going to have nice boards, which is great. It's great that you got these donated, you know. I've got nothing against that, but I just can't see this rink running the same, to the cost being the same as it was at Stellace Park. I can't buy into that. I'm sorry, but, so, anyway.
I'll go to Ben. Okay.
Maintenance and all that stuff did come up a little bit in the Blue Line Club meeting, and it was talked about that we would need to be able to help, like, with the snow removal, with the flooding, all those things. And there is, like, constantly a handful of people, if not more, always there that have been having backyard rinks that'll probably be doing a lot of the maintenance, a lot of the flooding, we know as a Blue Line Club that we're going to have to chip in because it's an extra rink, because it's, our kids want to use it. Like that did come up at the Blue Line Club meeting.
Ben.
Thank you. Reid, I see here that, we're planning on closing Stellace Park, and the utility costs will be about the same, but we'll need to flood it almost daily. Is that where the cost difference comes from keeping the warming house open at Stellace, and then just the cost of water at the new rink? And I guess my question was going to be, is Blue Line willing to pitch in if the maintenance costs every year get to a certain point?
Yeah, so to answer your question, on the utility cost at the arenas, I tried to run some numbers to figure out just how much water we might use at this rink in comparison to Stellace Park. At Stellace Park, there really were two outdoor rinks. There's one rink that's inside boards, and then there's a second that we call the pleasure rink that has no boards around it. The total square footage between those two rinks was somewhere, I don't have that written here, but my recollection is saying that was somewhere in the area of 34,000 square feet. A 200 by 85 ice rink is 17,500 square feet. So theoretically, the total square footage of water that we need to be able to pour, we're cutting it almost in half in that. On top of that, we're proposing a full concrete slab here versus the grass at the Stellace Park location. So total water consumption that I have estimated that Blue Line Arena would use, and this includes a daily flood each day of the new rink, I'm estimating we would use 125,000 gallons of water through the season. And that has a water consumption cost of $1,152. The extra that I'm saying we've spent each year at Stellace Park is the electricity side of things. So total utilities that I'm estimating, this is based off today's cost of utilities, it should cost us about $4,500 a year to have to water and have lights at this new outdoor rink, in comparison to the $9,000 it was at Stellace Park. Total consumption of water at Stellace Park, the last time we ran the entire season, was somewhere in the area of 250,000 gallons of water. So that was about, for the cost of water, that's about $1,000 over the course of the entire winter. Now, I've been tried to be really conservative in sharing those numbers because, to Mr. Helm's point of the unknown, I'm punching numbers on math based on thinking we need 3-inch thick ice and we have a concrete slab and we're going to flood it once a week and a Zamboni has 450 gallons of water in it. And I'm coming up with a number, but I know there's a lot of circumstances we just don't know when we get into it. The other cost saving that I've mentioned a couple of times that we would see in this rink at the new location in comparison to Stells Park is I would not employ an additional warming house attendant at the Blue Line Arena. And that has a cost of about $6,000 a year compared to at Stells Park. The warming house was open and manned for 6 or 7 hours a day. So in the Blue Line Arena, that Blue Line Arena attendant that's already there and working, whether there's an outdoor rink there or not, would cover that space and fill those duties. So there'd be a little cost savings there as well.
Mr. Reid.
I'm kind of on the same note as Ben. We've had conversations with some individuals that it's been discussed that the first year is kind of going to be the test market. We're going to know exactly after the first year what the cost is going to be. So from that point on, we can come back and say, hey, Blue Line Club, this is what we need. We're going to have a cost share going here, because here's what the dollar amount's going to be. We'll have a better handle on it. There's no way to give us an exact amount. I know Reid's trying. It's not possible. But it's going to be close. He's going to be semi-close to what a number can be. Second year, we can kind of come up with an idea and say, let's throw this down the line. Here's what we're going to do. The first year is going to be our test market. I like the idea. It's not just hockey. Figure skaters, yep, they should be out there, dress a little warmer, get out there, get some skating in. Recreational skaters, I don't know if the mayor skates, God, I hope not, but get him out there or someone out there skating too. That would be nice.
Reid, do you want to say something?
Thank you. I did. Just one more thought I wanted to mention. I thank you, Nicole, for bringing up the discussion about the maintenance. That when this project first came, the idea came, Judd and I visiting, that was one of the very first things that I said to Judd and to the Blue Line Club is that this project, to me, it cannot absorb additional operations costs for our Parks Department, nor do we have the staff time to do it. And that's been evidenced the way our outdoor rinks have looked the last couple of years. They've been non-existent. So I said to them at that time, and that holds true today, that this rink will not be successful without someone like the Blue Line Club or our parent groups stepping up to lead the charge on it each year to help operate it. I said that when we talked about it 2 weeks ago at the work session, and it holds true today, that we will be getting parents out in the fall, the first part of winter, when it gets cold. They will be out there building ice to be able to limit our staff capacity, to limit our expense internally, to make sure it can be successful. I believe and trust in the Blue Line Club that their commitment to operate it each year and to make sure it's taken care of each year is going to be there. I think they have a proven track record over the years of buying into a project and making sure that they don't just build it, that they stick with it and maintain it year after year. And from that perspective, I feel like that this project would be successful from the Blue Line Club standpoint as well.
Ben?
Thank you, Mr. President. Reid, what happens with the warming house at Stells Park? Do we use it in the summer for anything, or does it sit empty all summer and then we just use it in the winter?
It doesn't sit empty. It gets used every Wednesday. The driver's testing uses the front office part of Stells Park, and they use the warming house and the restrooms for their waiting area. It's not used probably as often as it could be. That's the only real use it would continue to have, is that once a week. But that does serve a valuable purpose. As for the outside of Stells Park, the boards and the lights, I haven't come up with a final answer on what we would do with that. the lights are all in dire need of replacement if there was going to continue to be an outdoor rink there. So the first thought, when you drive by, you'll see the power lines are maybe 12 feet above the ground because they're drooping so much over the years. The first thought would be is that I'd talk with Water and Light about just removing the lights and the power lines completely, just so they're not a hazard to anything if they're not going to be used anymore. But as for what would happen next with that property, we've had a little brainstorming, but haven't set any plans in our minds.
I think it would be good to know what we want to do with that building and with that space before we ultimately make a decision on this too.
Anybody else have anything to offer? Ms. Mayor?
Just one thing, and I'm sure it's in the minds of the Blue Line families and Northern Lights even. I had two sons come through our hockey program, and they did some figure skating when they were younger, and they were 2 years apart. So you always had one, a peewee on the ice and a squirt just hanging around. Well, this would be perfect. They can get out and skate around and play pickup games while their sibling is out doing the other thing. Or the figure skater sibling is out skating, just having fun while their brother or sister is playing hockey, whatever it might be. I think the opportunity for family members not scheduled for practice to get out and go. I mean, what else are they doing? They're hanging around the arena just hitting pucks against the walls and breaking stuff. This way they can get out and actually do something, developing their skills, having fun. We haven't talked much about that, but I see the location in proximity to these two other ice sheets as being a real plus for that.
Mr. Galsted?
I just, a question, and I know there was just because I know that the city and possibly the Blue Line Club are both going to try to get donations. How are those going to be distributed? Are they going to be like pro rata share from the 100,000 or the 250,000? How is it going to be done so that you're not both trying to get the same person to donate, and then the city finds somebody that'll give us $100,000 and we go, okay, there's our money, or vice versa. And I just wanted to have some type of a thought process on that before you went forward, so there wasn't some kind of disagreement after the fact, because both parties are going to probably try to get some type of donation.
Are you trying to determine who you're giving the money to, Galsted? I guess I know the Blue Line Club mentioned they're going to be raising money. I don't think anybody, the city staff, said anything about fundraising. So I don't know if maybe misunderstood that comment. They did come from the Blue Line Club saying they were going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for other ways, of course, to springboard the rest of our membership to try to get more engaged in future fundraising. Because we haven't done anything sizable for a while. Probably the last project was like in the VF Arena, the shooting area or something like that, So this, being able to take something like this project, or I take that back to the Blue Line Club when we helped put heat in there and stuff too. So that was a couple years back. So those are some things, we're trying to use like this project in our own membership and to try to get them more engaged in helping us fundraise for future things and stuff like that too as well, so.
Okay. Anybody else have anything, questions or anything like that for discussion? I think there's a couple of questions out there that maybe Ben wanted answers on, and I mean, we can keep moving forward and keep the discussion going. I think it's...
And then just show the source of funds for our 100, if you guys could show, kind of prioritize how that might move up and something else could be adjusted. I'd love to see our source of funds, if we could, close as we can get.
Tim, you guys have anything to offer at the closing? Okay. No, appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We'll move on to number 2, consider volume plans and specifications, said bid for the 2023 city project number 2 for LaFave Park improvements. Mr. Emery.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, council. So if you recall at the last work session, I had brought some plan sheets to kind of give you an overview of the project. So I think we're to a point, we're going to be wrapping those plans up. So we'd like to file those plans and specifications at next Tuesday's council meeting, and then get authorization from you to proceed with advertising. And then we're looking at a bid date of 10 a.m. on May 31st, 2023. So really, I guess that's all we're looking for with this RCA.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Emery on that? Mr. Helms?
A quick one. Once the bids are out and they get accepted, do you have, about when is that project gonna start, do you think? I mean,
Yeah, we're probably looking at June, July, well, probably July, August. Again, like we talked last time, I think it's going to be a 2-year project. We're going to have to be flexible with some of our completion dates to work around all the different activities, whether it's catfish days, softball, baseball tournaments. So Reid and I are currently looking at those dates. We're going to incorporate some of that stuff into our bid contracts, so contractors can kind of schedule accordingly, so.
yeah, so it would be this year yet that it would eventually.
Hopefully, we would get started on something this
Okay,
year,
that's what-
but,
okay.
you know, if we get a contractor that doesn't have a window this year and he wants to do everything next year and he can make that work, we'll go for that too, so.
Anybody else have anything? I see none, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Number 3, consider request use of local channel. Ms. Nelson?
As it said in the RCA, Councilmember Helms was contacted by a local church to see if they could be allowed to, I want to say stream, but have their services included on our local channel. I looked into it because I know a request had come in before, but at this time, we do not have a policy in place on how our local channel's used. So I guess we would like direction from the council on how they would like to see our local channel used. Currently, it's just our local government and our school functions that are on the channel. And if that's, is that the way you want to continue? Or, do you want to look into this a little bit more? So, and then that way we can address requests as they come in the future. So I guess we'll just asking for direction.
I think one of the things that came up too is what is allowed on it, and I think you sent out, public educational and government access channels, kind of, but I think Mr. Gallstead looked into it also, correct, sir? And I think that's something that maybe coincides with this. I guess if you fully look at the statutes, I don't know what, if you want to go through that, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I was just asked regarding this because I believe it was more like a question if there was any constitutional issues because of separation of church and state. I went into and looked at what PEG channels are used for. They're public, they're educational, and they're governmental. The reason I was a little bit conflicted on a church is because a church is definitely not governmental. It's not an educational institute, so to speak, and so then does it fit the public aspect of it? Well, technically speaking, it's a private enterprise. It's a private commercial enterprise if you look at it in different ways. The ordinance or the franchise agreement specifically says that we can use it for non-commercial means and non-commercial entities. So without getting more involved there, I looked through case law. I didn't find anything on point today. I haven't been able to put a lot of time into it to follow up with possibly even the attorney for the cable company. But at this point, I would either table it or deny it until we have better information on whether or not that would violate our franchise agreement because of the non-commercial language that's in there. The other thing is if we are going to expand, whether it's for this reason or general public reasons, I think we should then start to consider setting up policies and procedure for the utilization of it. just so that there isn't any conflicts. I do know Minnesota statute kind of says first come, first serve, but that could mean almost anything, especially if you're trying to live stream and we don't have the equipment. And then begs the cost. How much time is it going to take from staffing purposes? Is there additional equipment that we're going to need? And if that's the case, the franchise agreement also provides that the city could, to help cover those costs, implement up to a 1% cost to all subscribers that would come in and help fund those costs. So that would be another discussion I think that we would want to have regarding this issue. So that's basically what I found out today. I probably told you a whole lot of nothing, but there wasn't a lot out there other than the fact that it's a commercial entity and it says non-commercial in the franchise agreement.
I just wanted to add, Corey is here if you guys
I
have
was
any
just gonna ask
questions
him.
about. Yep.
Corey, the question I have, and I think I mentioned this to Megan too, is with current setup, and of course, this could be either Wednesday night or Sunday or whatever, what would that be, take on your staff levels and time, and also the capability of grabbing their feed, the cost of for us?
Once we have policies set, we would just set up the automation so that, in this case, the organization in question here would just send us a like RTMP or SRT feed like they would if they were doing like a YouTube live stream. And we just have the automation set up to switch to them during the time slot that they're allocated for. And if it's not a live event, we would provide. I'm just going to say FTP, but it could be any kind of file drop, where they can upload their programming to, and again, the automation will just grab it at the time it's supposed to air.
So it's either live or taped?
We could accommodate anything. The main thing I'm hoping is that we can come up with a policy of whether it's government access only, or public access, and then acceptable programming policy.
How many other, of these channels allow this now? I looked at other ones and I do not see any of that on there.
Yes, the franchise agreement gives us the authority to decide the programming that goes on the city channel. Decide the policy on that.
Okay. Mayor?
My concern, and we did touch on it, would be, does this open the floodgates and a whole lot of requests come in? And then if you had some means to limit that, you'd have to make very sure that the limits that you placed were fair and equitable for everybody. And I feel like that could become then a big problem. Too many requests and maybe kinds of requests that we would want to limit, and then opening ourselves up to some problems with that.
My other thought too on this is, I'm assuming they're streaming already. So I'm not sure, I'm sure they want to find additional audience members that aren't able, and I totally understand that. But I think I have the same reservations of allowing this. And then what else are we going to allow? Like I said, we do, if we're moving forward, either way, we need to do a policy on this. I think moving forward, I think my wish would be that we would limit to what we have intended it to be used for, and that we set that policy up so that lays it out. But I'm one person. Mr. Riepel?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else got the email or not, and I don't know why I got it, to be honest with you, but this gentleman is on the board, and he was just inquiring about it to see what the process is and who he'd have to go through and whatever. And I just told him, I said I'd check into it for him and see, and he said, wonder what the process would need to take to see if it's even an option. So I don't know if they're, I'd say dead set that they're going to be able to do that, but he was just wondering about it, if there was an option or not, so I could just get back to him so he'd know. That's all we were kind of looking for. 'Cause I didn't know how it was done in the past or anything, or if anything, so.
No, we got to
I
set a
might check
policy
into it.
anyway. I mean, it's something that we need
Yeah.
to do, so.
So,
Mr. Riepel?
I was just going to inform you that they do live stream. There's several others that do it in town
Oh, yeah.
also, so it's kind of like we'd be opening the floodgates here. I'm personally against doing it since they already have their own current live stream. We're best just staying with our government and education, or school district. Leave it at that.
Mr. Helms?
So do we have a policy in place like that, or do we need to do something like that so that we don't have to go through this?
I think the way Ms. Nelson mentioned it is that we currently do not have one in place,
Yeah.
so we would need to look at, if we were not going to allow it, that we still need to do a policy that lays out what are we allowing, as I said, also. So I think we'll need to maybe work with Megan and, I guess, Corey, and then Mr. Gallstead. I guess it would be the three that we'd work with to set the policy, parameters, and then bring it to council for discussion at a work session. Am I correct on that, Ms. Nelson?
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions on it, or?
If,
Ben?
one quick, I'm sorry.
Hang on a second, sir.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I didn't know we had one.
Just back up.
Thanks, Mr. President. I agree with Mr. Riepel that I think I don't think we should allow it on the channel, especially since they're already streaming. And the entity that made the request, pretty much every group like that in town streams their own services. So I worry that it opens the floodgates. Just overall question, what all is on the channel now? I know it's the council meeting, the school board. Is there anything else that goes on there? Or
Our
like,
board and commission meetings.
okay,
And during COVID, we did have some sports, just because people could not get to it, or, a very limited amount of people. But I think at this point, there's been a couple, or I think there's a provider now that provides games and stuff like that. So we don't show certain things anymore. But it's basically our boards and commissions, council meetings, and then the school board meetings.
sure. Can schools do like Knowledge Bowl meets and things like that on there? Would they be allowed to do stuff like that?
I guess that would be set by the policy.
Sure.
I know Corey had mentioned, one of the things that they've done before is a robotics tournament.
Yeah, that's,
Stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, not all sports, but yeah, like robotics and stuff. So if you guys want those different activities allowed, that can definitely be included in the policy.
that's all I got. Thank you.
Not only do we get to watch reruns of our meetings on there, we get to watch Crookston's too, because it gets put on there, so. I don't know if there's anybody else that goes on there, but.
Let's discuss the ISD 595 in Crookston, Polk County or someone, again, if we stick to government access to Polk County or someone wanted access on there, I'd be inclined to give it. I guess we need to set that policy though.
Right. So that's why, you working setting, we would know who is able, if it's a government, school district, whatever, we would know all the entities that would be able to do it, so that we could set it, so. Anybody else have anything? Mayor?
So we kind of hit on what I was about to say, and that is if we're going to direct staff to create a policy, we should also direct them as to our preference of what that would look like now. So as they undertake to craft a policy, they know what we would prefer. So government, school, and school board and such, all of our boards and commissions, school-sanctioned activities, I think we're favorable. And anything else, as we want to turn our staff people loose on crafting this policy, any other guidance we'd want to give them so the first draft can be somewhat close to our preferences.
Corey?
Yeah, I will say in our negotiations on this last time we did the cable franchise agreement, we did request reservations for ISD 595 and Northland Tech, and we were given the one allocation and told to share it, just to put that out there.
Mr. Helms?
I just want to let you know I have something else I'd like to bring up when we're done with this here.
So, I mean, I think you laid it out, what really direction that we need them to go into. You know, we're not going to have, you know, private entities or stuff like that. It's going to be more all governmental or, you know, that. So, Mr. Gausted, sir.
Maybe Corey can answer this, but I did have a discussion with Megan earlier. You know, the contract allows for 2 PEG channels. Right now, we're using one, and I'm questioning on if the other one is well, somebody indicated that the Midco allows our subscribers to use UND or something on that line. And I think that's anybody that's a subscriber because it's a Midco channel. So I would be looking at whether or not we have one more PEG channel that's we can allow because of the contract.
That would need your interpretation on it. The explanation I was given before is that was including the Grand Forks Channel 2. So there's the Grand Forks Channel 2 as the one PEG channel, and our channel as the or Channel 15 is the other one. But that's something to investigate. But that's my recollection from about 8 years ago, I think, when our franchise agreement was last.
Thank you.
Doesn't Grand Forks have both Channel 2 and 3?
Channel 3 in East Grand Forks, I know, was carrying Crookston's for a while, but they're off the air now. So.
With my system, I think it's Channel 6. It does that in Crookston sometimes too, so it's different. Anybody else have anything? Mr. Holmes.
This has got to do with, I don't know if anybody goes to Eastside Dairy Queen or not, but the lady that owns it, she was riding her little moped up on 5th Avenue, and she had a girl on behind her, and she hit one of those manholes up there right on the end of Garden Court on each end. She hit the one on the north end of Garden Court, and she flew quite high. She ended up with 7 fractured ribs, a broken nose, face all skinned, her elbows, her legs, everything. I just wonder if that isn't something we should be looking at, those manholes. I drove up there and looked at them, and they have sunken a long ways. I mean, way too far. So if there's something we could maybe do there to take care of that problem.
I think that's something Jason and I could take a look at, but what you're seeing this time of year, it's not the manholes that have sunk, it's the street is rising up with the frost, and the manhole is basically staying there. So you get the manhole that's down deeper. One thing we try to do with all of our new construction is make those manholes catch basins. We try to make them like a floating casting so that they're tied with the street so they're able to move with the street. So, but we can take a look at that. But
Well,
I think that's what's happening is the streets came up, the manholes stayed there, so it's.
Might be part of the problem, but I can't believe the street come up that high without tearing the street up.
They'll come up 3-4 inches.
And I think, if I remember correctly, when we were dealing with this situation with 20th Street, that was part of the problem on 5th was those manholes. I think they've been there for a long time like that, so. But anyway, if we can just check it and see if there's something we can do with that, to prevent this to happen, I mean, luckily the little girl in the back just got a couple scratches and she was okay, but Vicky from the Dairy Queen, she was in the hospital for about 3 days.
What was the location again? Could you?
It's on 5th Avenue up there, by Garden Court, yeah, Garden Court. And it's on, and where Garden Court comes around, there's actually one on each end of right at Garden Court. And they're both pretty bad shape, so if we could just, you'll see it right away. It's not hard to, it's really deep. That's all.
Mr. Vetter.
Thank you. Is this in the area that would have been addressed had we fixed 20th Street and part of 5th last year? Then I'm not willing to do anything. They had their chance to get the street fixed. I don't want to do any maintenance on that road now until they decide that it's time to fix that road. So leave it go.
One end of it would have been, but the other end wouldn't have been.
They had their chance.
The other manhole.
Numerous times they've had their chance and voted it down every time. So they have to live with it now.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a look at it to see what Mr. Helms was talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't need a lawsuit.
If you decide, of course, that it's a failed storm sewer, we do have the separate fund for that. and we've kind of agreed throughout the city, this isn't just 5th and 20th. When you have failed storm sewer, we will utilize the separate fund to do those repairs.
All right, take a look at it, go from there. But anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Larson, second by Helms. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried and means adjourned.